everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to go through my favorite books of the year so far. Now it's pretty late in the year already, and I do have 8 books to talk about today. These are the ones that I just absolutely adored, whether they made me super happy or they were just super well written or they just had a lot of action and adventure and magic that I just absolutely adored. All of these are ones that I absolutely loved and gave either a 4.5 star rating or 5 stars. All of these are just phenomenal, and I really want to talk about all of them today, so here's my favorite books of the year so far. These are in no particular order because I cannot choose a favorite book of these quite yet anyway, so they're in no particular order. We're just going to jump right into it, and the first one is going to be Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is an adult romance novel that follows Dani, who is this black bisexual woman who's just like absolutely fabulous. She knows what she wants and she just goes after it. She's amazing. And it also follows Zephyr, who is a security guard at the college that Dani works at, and they actually become friends first. So it's a friends to lovers romance, which is something you don't see quite so often as like enemies to lovers, and I realized that I really enjoyed friends to lovers romances because of this book. There's a fake dating trope in this because Dani and Zephyr end up fake dating in order to help spread the word about Zephyr's charity that he runs. So it ends up being something for his sake, and she just kind of goes along with it, and it ends up being super cute, and I just absolutely loved it. It's definitely one that has made me think about picking up more of Talia Hibbert's books, especially Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which is the first one technically of the series, although you don't need to read them in order. But this one was so good. I ended up reading an arc of it, but I will be getting a finished copy for sure because I just loved it so much. The next one I want to talk about actually doesn't come out until next year. It was supposed to come out this year, but it didn't end up making it, I think due to everything going on with the pandemic and such. So they kind of pushed back the date, but it is going to be coming out March, I think, of next year, 2021. But it is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This is a young adult fantasy novel that is just something I think everybody should just be made aware of. If you're not already aware of it because of the cover, just phenomenal. But it's also very good. This book follows a 16-year-old woman named Deka, who is part of this world where women need to be bled, basically, on their 16th birthday. If their blood runs red, then they can just join society, they can get married, they can have kids, they can get jobs, and all the good stuff. But if their blood runs gold, that means that they need to be killed because they are these near immortals who have these special abilities and gifts. And Deka has known for a while that she's different, so she's hoping against all hope that her blood ends up running red, but it does not. It ends up running gold, and instead of being killed, she is recruited by the king to become part of this special forces, these women who are just like her, who also have these abilities and are basically immortal, to fight in his army. And Deka takes him up on that offer. She does not want to die like all the other ones before her. She wants to fight and hopefully change her future. And it was just amazing. It was so action-packed, and just the message in it was so strong and powerful, and it's just one that I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy when it does release. So keep your eye out for this one. It was just phenomenal. I cannot wait for it to come out so I can get myself a finished copy. It was just so good. The next one I want to talk about is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this is a young adult contemporary novel. It is entirely written in verse. So this is the first book I've ever read that is actually written in verse, but I loved it. This book follows 2 sisters who are not aware of the fact that they are sisters and that the other exists. It follows Camino and Yahara. Camino lives in the Dominican Republic and Yahara lives in New York City, and one day their father was traveling from Yahara to Camino in the Dominican Republic, and his plane ends up crashing and there are no survivors. And that is when Camino and Yahara realize and learn that they have a sister. This book was super, super powerful. It had a lot of strong messages. It had the message of identity mainly. And there was a little bit of jealousy between Camino being jealous of Yahara because of her lifestyle that she had. Camino kind of had it a bit harder, and being like, oh, my father loved her more than me and spent most of his time with her. But it was also had this like strong sense of hope in it, and there was just grief all the way through, and it was so, so, so powerful. I cried a few times in it. The ending was just so beautiful. It was one of those ones that I kept thinking about it when I wasn't reading it, or even after I finished reading it. I just kept thinking about this book. It was just so beautiful, and it's definitely made me realize, just like Talia Hibbert's book, that I need to pick up more of Elizabeth Acevedo's books. She has 2 more, I believe, out right now that I definitely need to pick up, because this one was just so beautiful, so impactful, and it's definitely one that I think a lot of people can enjoy, but also see themselves in and experience, and, you know, maybe heal from certain traumas in their life. And it's just so powerful, and I definitely recommend it to a lot of people. I recommend it to everybody because it was just beautiful, beautiful. I can't even with this one. It was just phenomenal. The next one I want to talk about is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This is a adult horror / fantasy novel that I have just been talking about endlessly, non-stop, this entire time since I've read it. I've just been mentioning it in so many videos. I've been recommending it to my coworkers and other people at my bookstore, and just like telling everybody that they need to read this book. But if you don't know what it's about, it follows a young woman named Emmanuelle who lives in this kind of puritanical society that is run by this prophet who has many wives, and it's very patriarchal. There's a patriarchy. That word. So Emmanuelle kind of lives in this world, and she is looked down upon a lot because she is biracial, so it's a lot to do with her skin color, as well as the fact that her mother just has this connection with the forest that these witches were supposedly a part of. It's like a cursed forest. So this book is also very, very heavy with trigger warnings, I will say. There's a lot of violence, there's gore, there is underage sex, there is rape in it, which is the same thing, but there's just so many trigger warnings in this one. However, they were not done for shock value. They were actually really well done and fit into this novel for what the message was about. Basically, Emmanuelle is kind of struggling to understand how her mother fits into this world, as well as Emmanuelle herself, so it's a lot to do with identity. But there's also these plagues that end up hitting the village that she lives in, these very dark, very gory, very intense plagues that just have befallen the people of this village, and it's up to Emmanuelle to figure out what is causing them and how to stop them. But everything just like comes to it like a head at the end of this, and it's just like this huge crescendo of things happening, but it was just phenomenal. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year, like all of these are, but this one's kind of towards the top. I even tabbed it all up. I thought it was so well done and so action-packed, but also really beautifully written. And there's also this little like hint of a romance between Emmanuelle and the prophet's son, which I just absolutely adored, because it also showed hope for change in the future, which is something that I like to see in a novel. So I really, really enjoyed this one. If you haven't picked it up yet, it is already out. You guys should definitely pick it up. Next, I want to talk about Furyborn by Legrand. This is a young adult fantasy novel that I read kind of like right at the beginning of my quarantine that I was in, and I loved it so much that even before I finished it, I had to purchase the second book. Although I haven't read the second book yet, I'll get to it soon. But this one is about two women set years apart from each other. One is said to be someone who is going to save the people in the world. The other one is said to destroy it. But we don't really know which one is which, not for a little while at least, but there's a lot of action in this. I love the shifting of POVs from one of the women to the other. I really enjoyed that aspect. I think I liked one of the women's perspectives. Let me remember her name. Raelle, yes. I liked Raelle's perspective a bit more, mainly because she's kind of going through these trials. Now that she finds out that she has these magical abilities, she has to go through these trials to really, like, figure out if she is, like, I think they call her the Sun Queen. But they're prophesized queens, basically. The Sun Queen and I think the Blood Queen. But yeah, this novel was basically trying to connect the two timelines a little bit, but there was so much action in it, and I loved the relationships that each of these queens had with their either significant other or just the people around them. I really, really loved it so much, and I just loved the action in it. It was one of my favorite works of action. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I know a lot of people have read this one already, but I finally jumped on this bandwagon and got to it, and I can definitely say that everybody was right. It was very, very good. The next one I'm going to talk about is going to make so many people very, very happy, and it is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. So this one is an adult fantasy novel that I mainly loved because I loved the characters in it. This novel is about a young woman named Nari who lives on the streets of Cairo. She is a thief, and one day she accidentally releases this Jinn warrior named Dara, and he kind of like sweeps her away on this magical journey to Davabad, which is where the other Jinn warriors and people are, and it is about Nari kind of coming to terms with the fact that she might not actually be human like she always thought she was. And it just has a lot of political intrigue in it, has a lot of action in it, and you meet like a lot of really intriguing characters, specifically Dara, in my opinion. Dara and Nari. I just love their little like relationship between the two of them. Not necessarily like romantic, although I kind of hope it turns into a romance. I do have the other two books in the trilogy that I really, really want to get to, hopefully very, very soon. But you also meet another Jinn named Ali, and things just happen all over the place. It's just wild. But mostly, if you're interested in kind of political intrigue fantasies, this one would definitely be one that you should pick up, because although there is action, there is a lot of magic in it, it is mainly to do with politics and the underlining theme of it all, basically. But I loved it. It was so good. I don't know why I didn't pick it up before which I picked it up recently, but like I don't know why I didn't pick it up earlier, because it was just so good. But I read it, so I cannot wait to read the next two books. The next one I have here is one that I actually read pretty recently, and it was The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is the first book in a debut fantasy series. The next one is coming out very, very soon, and I cannot wait to pick it up. This book follows a young man named Tayu who all of his life just really wasn't into fighting too much. That is until he witnesses his father being killed, and he decides that he needs to get revenge on all of the men who were involved in that act. So he vows to become the best fighter in the land so that he can get revenge and kill all these men. So a lot of people kind of compare this to Game of Thrones meets Gladiator, and I can 100% see that. There's a lot of magic like there is in Game of Thrones, and a lot of kind of contesting of ruling people in this, but with the Gladiator aspect, these men, Tayu specifically, kind of joins this group of soldiers and becomes their own section, and they have to fight against other soldiers kind of like as a training exercise, because they're all technically part of the same army. However, Tayu is from a lower class, so his group of men are always looked down upon because they are from this lower caste of people, and mainly like servants and things like that. So they're kind of looked down upon for the most part. However, they are technically still in the same army as all the rest, but they have a lot more to prove. This was so action-packed. Like, there was action on almost every single page, it felt like. Lots of magic in it, and the magic was so interesting and so cool. I love the fact that mainly the women have the magic and can bestow magic on other people and kind of affect the men more so. So when a woman is shown to be one of these kind of priestesses and these women who have this power, they are like right below the royalty. They are so high up, even no matter where you came from in life. If you have these abilities, then you are up there. And I just loved that side of it. I will say there is one complaint that I had throughout this book, and that is the fact that Talia kind of got things a little twisted. He took things a little too far, and he was so focused on his revenge that sometimes he put his men and his friends in danger, kind of just for his own gain, and it was just not something I like to see, so I was getting a little annoyed with him. However, overall, the action, the adventure, the magic, the world building, the language just was phenomenal, so I can kind of, you know, put that aside a little bit, but I still really, really enjoyed this book, and if you haven't picked it up, I highly recommend you do. Phenomenal. And then the final book I want to talk about today is my most recent read. Like, literally as I'm filming this, I just finished this like a day ago. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year. It is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book was not what I expected at all. It is an adult fantasy, but it is the most wholesome, unique, light-hearted, pure fantasy book that I have ever read. It is set in this world where there is a section of the government that works with magical children, so it's called the Department in Charge of Magical Youth, and they're kind of just like tasked with going to these orphanages and these homes where these magical children are and making sure things are safe for those children, and if not, they need to report back and shut down the orphanages. So one of the major aspects of this book is these magical children all have to be registered, so that's kind of like a topic of conversation within this novel. Like, should they be registered? Should they just live normal lives? Do they really have to be scrutinized like this? But the main character's name is Linus, and he works for this department, and he is tasked with going to this orphanage that is housing 6 kind of like highly classified children. And he, of course, meets the head of the orphanage named Arthur, and they start a relationship. It's like, there's this cute, like, male-male relationship in this between Linus and Arthur, and it was just so pure. And then there's this like little kid named Chauncey, and just everything about this book, I could not even handle it. While I was reading this, I like never stopped smiling, except for the part towards the end where you're supposed to not be happy about it, and you know, but there's a happy ending. But it was so pure, so magical. Definitely one of those books where it can border the line between young adult and adult, so I believe younger readers can also read this as well. Not too young, because there's some innuendos in here, if you know what I mean, but this was just phenomenal. Something I wasn't expecting whatsoever, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I didn't explain it very well, but all you need to know is that there's magical children, and just the relationship between the head of the orphanage and Linus was just amazing. So pure. I keep saying that, but it was just so pure, and I just loved every second of this book. So there you have it, everyone. Those were my 8 favorite books of the year so far. We still have September, October, November, December, 4 more months to go in this year. So hopefully I can find a few more of my favorites. I'm planning on reading Jade City soon, as well as Poppy War. So those might very well be on my end of the year list with my favorite books, but I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. I would love to know. Please like this video and subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you all next time. Bye!